Hi everyone, and welcome back to today's grammar lesson. This is going to be a little bit longer when it comes to the material that we are going to be discussing because there's a lot to talk about today. All right? We're going to be going over 6 verb tenses. We're going to talk about the simple past, present, future, and the progressive past, present, and future. That's only 6. In the verb tenses in English, there's 6 more, but we're not going to do that right now. That's for future lessons. So let's talk about when do we use the simple past, present, and future, and how those are formed. So when it comes to the simple past tense, what you have to remember are 2 things. First, the simple past tense defines, it tells you if your verb is regular or irregular. What is a regular verb? A regular verb means that the verb ends with ed or ied depending on the verb. So if you have play, play becomes played. Study becomes study, ied, studied. Run is irregular. It doesn't have an ed. It has a run becomes ran. Write is not righted. Write becomes wrote. Okay? So those are irregular verbs. When you know the simple past tense, this will tell you in your brain, regular, irregular. Why is that important? Well, regular verbs are easy because just ed, ied. Irregular verbs, you have to memorize. And then it's important because later when we do the perfect tenses, you need to know regular or irregular tell you if your past participle is going to still be ed or if your past participle is going to be something completely different. But don't worry about it right now. That's for a future lesson, just to kind of give you a heads up. But regular, irregular is for the simple past tense, as well as when you are telling a story, the simple past tense is your storytelling tense. A lot of times I give assignments to my students to say, tell me about what you did last weekend, or tell me about your summer vacation, tell me about your last birthday, something. And when they tell me their story, a lot of times they're actually telling me their story in the simple present tense or in some other tense. And I'm trying to tell them, don't do that. A story that already finished, tell me in the simple past tense. I went on a vacation with my family. We had a good time. Something like that, using the simple past tense, regular, irregular verbs, ed or not ied. When it comes to the present tense, there's a lot of stuff here that you should know, but the important thing is that the simple present tense we're not talking about right now. That's the mistake many people make. The simple present is not now, the present progressive is actually now. But the simple present is talking about habits, facts, opinions, and statements. Habits are things that you do all the time. I play baseball. Am I playing baseball right now? No, but I have played and I still continue to play baseball. So this is something that I do. An opinion, right? So it's just your thought. It's not a fact yet. A fact is 100% proven. An opinion is just something that you think. And maybe you can tell someone with more information that it becomes a fact. A statement is just you think. The sky is blue, right? There I'm just using the is, right? So I'm using the be verb there, right? So the sky is blue is just a statement. This is a present simple construction. We're not talking about now. Subject-verb agreement also comes into play here. Because if your subject is singular, your verb has to have an S. If your subject is plural, your verb doesn't have an S. So John, right, plays, right? It's not John play. They play, right? So make sure that here, especially, your verbs have to have subject-verb agreement. In the simple future tense, there's 2 ways that we do it. There's also 2 ways that we do it in the progressive future tense. Those don't change. If you look here, will, be going to, this is where it's different. If you have to memorize something today, I want you to memorize this. Right? It doesn't matter whether it's a simple tense, progressive tense, perfect tense, or perfect progressive tense. This part of the future pattern will always be the same. You could say will plus verb, infinitive. This is also key. Sometimes I see he will plays. No. This verb never has an S. Okay? These verbs could have an S or not have an S depending on your subject. This verb, always in the infinitive, always the way that you find it in the dictionary, just the base form of the verb. So it's will plus the verb, infinitive, or be going to plus the verb. This be verb, you have to have subject-verb agreement. So is, am, are, okay? Depending on your subject. When we go into our progressive, all progressive tenses have this pattern. Be plus verb ing. You need to have the be verb. Just because a word is verb-ing, like running isn't always going to be used as a verb unless you have the be verb first, right? So here, same thing, subject-verb agreement. What is the past tense of be? The past tense of be could be was, or it could be were, subject-verb agreement. Plus verb ing. It is still be plus verbing. Here, it is still be plus verbing. But the be verb could be is, am, or are, depending on what? Yep, subject-verb agreement. This is now. This is not now. This is now. What are you doing right now? Right now, at this moment, right now, what are you doing? You are watching me, right? So you are watching me through the internet, through the phone, through your home computer, right? So some way you are watching me right now. That is what you are doing now, okay? Another mistake I see is, like people say you are watch. They use the be verb, but they don't put the ing. Be careful. Be plus verb ing. So this is now, this is habits, facts, opinions. The future progressive tense, again, two patterns, will or be going to. So will be verbing, or is, am, are going to be verbing. There's two be verbs. Don't change this, only change this for subject-verb agreement, right? That's why it's complicated. There's two be verbs. Sometimes I see is going to verbing because they thought they had the be verb here, right? But you need both. This one never changes. Make sense? If it doesn't, please go back and review this video. If you are ready, let's look at some examples. All right, so let's look at a couple of examples of how we're going to use all of our tenses, our simple and our progressive tenses. What everyone should always be able to do is take any sentence and just change it to make it into any tense. So let's look at the simplest kind of sentence we can make. The simplest kinds of sentence we can make are usually going to be the two-word sentences, subject and verb. For a command like go, right? That's a one-word sentence, but those are the exceptions to the rule. Usually you're going to have a subject and a verb. So John ran is your simple past tense. Ran is the past tense of run. It's also an irregular verb. So John ran, period, simple past. Change that to present. Instead of ran, what is your present tense? Your infinitive, your base form of the verb. Ran is run. So John run, right? John runs, right? You need to have the S here because a singular noun needs to have a singular verb. A singular verb, some people get confused. They think a singular verb should just have no S, but no. The singular verb has an S at the end. So John runs is correct. That's the simple present. What about the future? John will run. Nope. So John will run. There's no S here, but there's an S here. So why is there no S here? There's never an S here in the simple future tense, okay? Never, ever, ever is there an S in the simple future tense for this verb. So John will run. John is going to run. This is your second pattern that you can make. The is your be verb and subject-verb agreement. So John is, they are, I am going to. Run is your simple future tense. Same sentence for your progressive tense. Your progressive tense has to have the be verb plus verb ing. So what is the past tense of be? Was or were? John is singular, so which one are we going to use? Was. So John was ran? Ranning? No, John was running. So John was running is your past progressive tense. What about your present progressive tense? What is he doing now? John, not was, John is running now. How do we make that into your future progressive tense? John will be running, or John is going to be running. Okay? Again, this changes, this does not change when you make the progressive pattern. Okay? There's always a be verbing in the future progressive tense. If you are going to use our second sentence, this one I think is a little tricky and it's important to know. They looked hungry. The verb look it could be an action verb or it could be a describing verb. All of the verbs that we use to describe our senses, we have two different forms of it. Okay? So when we use the word look as an action, this is not an action sentence. If I say they looked, period, well, that's an action. The looking is what I'm doing. Okay? But here, if I say they looked hungry, hungry is an adjective describing they. So here, I'm using this like it's a be verb, right? I could change this. They are hungry. It still makes sense, right? So they looked hungry. This looked, we're using it as a describing kind of verb. Here, if I want to make it into present tense, looked, take out the ed, regular verb, they look hungry. That's fine. What about into the future? They will look hungry. They are going to look hungry. Next, for the progressive, they was or were. It's past, but it's plural, so they were looking hungry. What about for the present progressive? They are looking hungry right now. Maybe some of you haven't had any food yet. What about the future? They will be looking hungry, or they are going to be looking hungry. That sounds very long, and it is, but make sure that you have all the different parts if you're going to use this second pattern. If that is confusing, I really hope it isn't, but you could always go back and rewatch this video for more information and to review. But you should all be able to take any sentence and just change it by learning the patterns. With that, let's review. Simple and progressive verb tenses review. Why is the simple past tense important? The simple past tense defines whether a verb is regular or irregular. What is the difference between regular and irregular verbs? Regular verbs end in ed or ied. Irregular verbs do not. When do we use the simple past tense? The simple past tense is the storytelling tense. It is used to tell a story that is already finished. When do we use the simple present tense? We use the simple present tense to talk about habits, facts, opinions, and statements. It is not used to talk about what is happening right now. What is subject-verb agreement? If you have a singular noun, you need to use a singular verb, ends in s or es. If you have a plural noun, you need to use a plural verb, does not end in s or es. How do all the future tense, simple, progressive, perfect, perfect progressive, patterns begin? All of the future tense patterns begin with either will plus or be going to. plus in the simple future tense, what form do we always use the main verb? The main verb is always in the infinitive, the basic form of the verb. It never has an s or es attached to the end. What pattern do all progressive tenses share? All progressive tenses include be plus verb ing. What is the past tense of be? Was or were is the past tense of be. When do we use the present progressive tense? We use the present progressive tense to talk about things that are happening right now.